Welcome to the Foundry, where leaders are forged daily. Each week we investigate themes of leadership, entrepreneurship, and mindset with some of the greatest minds in real estate. And now, the data scientist of real estate, George Roberts.
Welcome back, entrepreneurs. Today's guest, Brent Bowers, is an investor and coach with a focus on buying and selling vacant land. As an Army officer with over 8 years of service, Brent was spending a great deal of time away from his family, and he knew he needed to make some changes. Brent began investing in real estate as a way to support his family while having more time to spend with them. In a short period of time, Brent was able to expand his business, hire a team, and still had more time to spend with his family. Brent now helps other investors learn the ins and outs of buying land. Welcome to the show, Brent.
Hey, George. I'm excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. Well, I'm really excited that you reached out because, land is not something we normally discuss on the show, but I think it's very important to understand the full array of investing options out there. In fact, I think a lot of our listeners tend to be in commercial real estate and multifamily in particular. So maybe you could start by just setting the scene. How is investing in land different than other types of real estate investing?
Well, let's talk about something that I'm dealing with right now. I buy and sell vacant raw land. I make 90% of my money with vacant raw land. I have a lot of land notes that pay me every single month where I've sold that land and I receive monthly income, and nothing ever breaks on this land. There's nothing to break. There's no toilets, there's no roofs, there's no cockroaches. Well, there might be cockroaches.
You don't have any tenants?
No tenants. But
no neighbors?
I do. Well, there's neighbors. Neighbors buy the land. They want the land next door to them and they make payments. But I do buy houses. I have my own office building. We have apartments. So I'll take the cash flow from the land and invest it into other cash flowing assets because it gives me tax benefits. But let me tell you, I literally just left lunch with my wife, and I'm literally, as I was leaving, I said, I hate houses because we just got a rental back. I just got the photos back and I'm disgusted. I need to replace all the carpets. I need to paint the entire house. I need a new stove. And the tenant was only there for 2 years. And I don't ever deal with that with my land or anybody we've sold land to. They either pay or they don't. If they don't, we take the land back. They're not living on it, that nothing ever breaks. And I'm just looking at the cost of these houses. And then you might be like, people ask like, well, why do you buy houses? Well, I know that one day they're going to appreciate and my tenants are going to pay them down. But right now they cost me money every single month. But land, I'm always profitable immediately and forever. Same thing with commercial. We bought a 19-unit apartment complex back in 2018. I am still renovating that property. I'm not going to date your podcast, but it's many, many years later.
All right, I love it. So then you do talk about cash flow in land, and I think that's important because I think a lot of people look at it like, well, there's nothing there. It just sits there. It's not making me any money, but that's not true. I mean, you could rent it out to someone who would farm it, or you might sell it on land contract. You might have money coming in every month. So what are some of the ways that you make land cash flow?
Well, you just mentioned it right there. You just mentioned multiple ways, but the easiest way I make land cash flow is I buy it at a discount and I sell it for what it's worth. And generally I'll get a down payment and a monthly payment. Does it all work that way? No, sometimes they'll pay all cash for it. My father, we got him into land investing. He just turned 61 years old last week. He's done over 50 land deals. He has 10 acres that he rents out. He rents the land out for $6,000 a year. He's paid in advance in September. That land is surrounded by South Florida water management. Basically, it's swamp. It's swampland. And he gets $6,000 a year for it because a man hunts on it. So there's so many ways to make money in land, but my favorite way is to buy it and sell it because then you're dealing with owners. You're dealing with someone that wants to improve it. They want to pay it off, and they're generally not late. They think a little bit differently than someone renting it from you.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned the hunting rights because there's so many things that you can really separate from the land, like mineral rights, etc. And yeah, it doesn't, I joked about having no tenants, but you can have tenants on vacant land.
Yeah, true. And these are the best tenants ever. It's like my dad has become friends with one of his tenants that has been leasing it only about a year and a half now. But it's amazing. Like they only improve it. They don't cut trees down. They bring things out. They bring the corn for the feeders and the deer. And it turns into a great relationship. And something like that, like my dad wasn't using it. And most people think, oh, it's swampland. What are you going to do with it? Well, someone's willing to pay $6,000 a year in advance to use it. And that's just one of the many, many parcels we've done. We've leased land out for cattle grazing. But again, most of the land I bought, I have also sold on land contract or where I'm the bank, where I have a mortgage and a promissory note. Those are the best kinds because then I have no liability. Like you come and do a backflip off my roof, George, and break your neck. You're going to sue me. You're going to sue the insurance company, but you're probably not going after the bank that I have the loan with.
Yeah. Right. Well, hey, what is the land outlook for, say, 2023, 2024? I know there's a lot of people here, like I said, in multifamily that might be hurting a little bit. I actually think it's probably a good time to buy multifamily or other commercial or non-commercial real estate assets because I think better rates are coming. And if you can cash flow now, you're probably doing better in the future. But land, of course, is different. I mean, you've really got different cycle going there. So what is your outlook? Is this a good time to buy? What are the things impacting?
I think it's an amazing time. I'm seeing more and more people want to buy land to pretty much outrun inflation, to have better investments. I'm seeing people pull money out of the stock markets to buy land. I'm seeing a lot of house flippers that are just sick of the competition and the rat race of that, going in and buying vacant parcels of land. We call those infill buildable lots. They're next to water and sewer and electric, and they're building from the ground up because they can control that process. Now, obviously, they can't control when lumber prices skyrocket, but if they're getting the land at discounts in the way we teach them how to do it, or sometimes we just sell them directly to the land. I've sold one developer land so much, he's like, hey, can you teach me how to do this? And we threw him into the land sharks. Now I lost that buyer though, but here's the thing. There's always another land deal. There's so many deals out there. You don't have to have all of it.
Okay, great. Yes, I'm glad you mentioned development because that's something I'm involved in. And one of my questions is, hey, if you are a developer, you are always looking for land. So what are your tips for developers to find land at a good price, whether it's the infill lots you're talking about or the larger lots where you can actually build a subdivision?
Yeah, it's the same. If you're looking for a larger parcel than just on the outskirts of where the city's at, I don't generally teach developers how to buy land. I like to sell developers land, but I'll tell you how I buy it. And it would be the same for developers or someone that's looking to just, make some extra money. I teach a lot of veterans how to do this because that's my background. That's how I got out of the military. I needed to replace my income. Really, I just needed to cover my expenses so I can get out of the military. And I did that in a few short years, where we were collecting almost $9,000 a month within 18 months of buying and selling vacant raw land. But here's how I recommend to find the best deals is I was talking to you, George, right before we got on about vacantlandofthefree.com. That's one of my websites. I have not updated that website in like 8 months. So it's not true and accurate, but anybody's welcome to go and look at it. But we used to sell a lot of land from that website. We would take a down payment and a doc fee and a monthly payment right from that website. And the whole vacant land to the free thing, like everyone wants to be free. So we buy more land, buy bigger parcels of land. The neighbors want more land. And a lot of that land was like in the middle of nowhere, in the deserts, where you're not seeing path of growth yet or development yet. But now my land strategy has changed a little bit. And this will help the developers, is you go into your exact market. I mean, what's a major city that you're close to, George?
Oh, I live north of Detroit.
Okay, I'm not buying in that area, but I'm not buying in Detroit or anything. But let's just say that you put in Detroit, Michigan. So the reason why I say I'm not buying that area because I'm in Florida. I love Florida. I buy in Florida and Utah. But if you put in Detroit, Michigan, and say like Zillow or Redfin, and then you go to all filters, and then you go to land and then sold, you want to look at what's been happening in the last 30 days. So all filters, land, sold, Detroit, Michigan, and you scroll down a little bit and put in the last 30 days or the last month, and then you go back to that map area and exit out of Detroit, Michigan, and then you can zoom out on the map. And now you're going to see the little hot pockets where land is selling. That's going to show you where the demand's at. And that's where the action's happening. Once you figure that out, you want to figure out a few more things, like what size parcel's selling, who is selling it, the listing agents, the buyer's agents, and then you go in and make offers on all the land in that area, but you build in your profit. Now, if you're a developer or a builder, you just figure in how much of a discount you want for that land, and you mail these landowners that exact amount that you're willing to pay for it.
Yeah, I love it. That's great stuff. And so you mentioned Land of the Free, and I love that because it's great marketing, obviously fits in with your background as an Army officer. Some other cool branding there behind you. You got that Rhino. I'd love to ask you the story behind that.
All right. Thanks for talking about the Rhino. So I'm part of the Wholesaling Inc. podcast. I do a case study every Friday that comes out on the Wholesaling Inc. podcast with one of my students that has found success in land, or usually it's their first land deal. But we call it the Rhino Tribe. Wholesaling Inc. is the Rhino Tribe. And it came from our original founder, Tom Kroll, but Brent Daniels now owns it, owns Wholesaling Inc., I should say. And the Rhino came from a great book called Rhinoceros Success by Scott Alexander. And the whole premise behind that is always be charging. Rhinoceroses have 3-inch thick skin, so they can take the torpedoes. In this business, as like the Foundry podcast here, entrepreneurs, this is a tough business. You want to be an entrepreneur, you better be tough. And rhinos are tough. They're always charging. They're not like cows that just sit there and just chew and sleep all day. You got to be charging every single day.
I love it. Well, very important to keeping the ecosystem healthy. You need those top predators. Things happen when you don't have them. Like, for example, Michigan now, we don't have any wolves, so we have deer would just munch everything into a moonscape if we didn't have hunters going out there every year and reducing the population. So kind of like sharks, though, do on in the water, I should say.
Damn, yeah, that's why we call it the land sharks. I love it, man. And you're right. You got to get those wolves back out there, eat some of those deers. We are the apex predator, and sometimes we don't act like it, but entrepreneurs must be the apex predator.
Yeah, absolutely. Restore some discipline to the markets. Well, amazing stuff here, and I'm trying to figure out where should we go next. How about approaching sellers? So going direct to the seller can be unnerving for most
Yeah.
people, but I know you found a way to make your campaigns pay off. And I love the way that you talk about it's a fear. Speaking to people is a fear, whether it's public speaking or even just one-on-one. You talk about that 100-pound telephone. So how do you get over this, and how do you help other people get over it?
Yeah, one of my coaches, Claude Diamond, I'll just give him a shout out. He calls it the prickly cactus, because no one wants to pick up the phone. And I'll tell you, I was the most shy kid in high school and middle school, and I had to learn this by being an entrepreneur. But what I love, what we've created with the Land Sharks, and what I do in my own personal business, is I teach people how to send out what we call LOLs, land offer letters, or you can laugh out loud because you just got a wonderful land deal under contract. But we are triple split testing this land offer letter over cold calling, sending like a envelope that looks like they're getting a check in the mail, and postcards against this land offer letter. And it is by far outperforming everything else. It's a purchase agreement that, George, if you own a piece of land in this northeastern part of Michigan, and I offer you 50 cents on the dollar, and if you sign it and send it back, we don't ever have to have a phone call. You send it via email or fax, or sometimes they'll take a picture of it and text it to me. But sometimes they will call too, just to tell you how dissatisfied they are, or to ask you, is this real? And that's how we're doing it. This is a lifestyle business. You can send these out at 5 o'clock in the morning and just go through them as they come in. It's not a bunch of cold calling and texting and reaching out and interrupting someone's day. Like, no one likes to be getting a phone call when you're sitting at dinner with your family.
Yeah, well, you make it sound so easy. Hey, just check the box, send it back, and we buy your land. But I think there's really a lot more to it. I know that you're very good at making these letters personal. And it's not just letters, right? Because you send out the postcard, but you might follow up with a text or a telephone call. I'll tell you a quick story about my friend. She lives just down the street from a beautiful lake. I want to get some dockage, and she actually put a picture of her children,
Oh,
sent it out to everybody who owns a dock on the lake, and said, "How can we get these kids out on the water?"
oh,
And I think that when you start to personalize things like that, and the reason I'm asking you, obviously, is because I know that you're a master of this, that makes a big difference because most people, yes, you're right, they're annoyed. They're annoyed even to toss the postcard into the garbage. But once you get personal, then it's much easier to open up the conversation that actually sells the land.
yeah. And you know what? I've got to get better at doing that as well. Just personalizing it. One thing that I did, it came from my dad. My dad's turned 61 last week. I think I mentioned that already. He's done over 50 land deals, but what he does on his letters, his land offer letters. And oh, by the way, I'd love to give your audience this land offer letter. I almost forgot. If anybody wants a copy of that, go to thelandsharks.com/LOL. I'm going to ask you for your email and then we'll mail it to you. We use an automatic program that does it. Again, that's thelandsharks.com/land offer letter or LOL /LOL. But my dad puts on there and in an area that he mails, he said, lived in this town. I'm not going to give you his area. Lived in this town for 55 years, friends with the sheriff, so-and-so. So that works for him. I started putting on there 100% disabled combat veteran. And that works for me. Like the people have called, like just old vets or whoever that want, like my husband was a veteran. I'd love to sell you this land. So personalizing it helps. I need to get better at, putting a picture of my kids and the dog and all that stuff, the guinea pigs on the letter. And maybe that would help me a little bit more, but that's brilliant.
Yeah, great stuff. And I think that it's simple, but not easy. Building that rapport in, at least in principle, it should be easy. You just reach out like you'd reach out to anybody else, but maybe because there's money involved, I don't know, people just clam up and it becomes something different.
Yeah, it's almost a muscle you have to build. Start small. I mean, my first land deal was $285. I started small. I sent out 687 postcards. And the guy that called me, he was a retired CPA. He owed $285 in back taxes. He was about to lose the land. He said, "Hey, it's yours for $285." I was like, "Can I have a few days? Can I have a few days to go and look at it? Because I have no idea what I'm getting into." So I went around and called realtors in the area, and a realtor literally bought it from me for $5,000 the next week. So I started small and I just kept building my confidence. The next one was $500. The next one was $4,700.
Right.
And the next one was $25,000. It was from a bank. I was so nervous and I didn't have $25,000. That was like telling me I had to go and raise $2.5 million in the next 30 days. I didn't have it. So and we're talking to commercial investors, like that's nothing for commercial, like $2.5 million.
Well, but I
is
say
like
$5,000 in a week is pretty big.
yeah, well, like you asked, one of the difference between commercial real estate and vacant raw land is, $250,000 can go a long way with land, but with commercial, that's like, hey, today we're going to paint the outside of the building for $250,000.
Right. Well, here, for some of our investors that may be a little bit jaded with tenants or painting the outside of the building again,
Again,
I know one of the advantages of land is that it's easy in many cases to get seller financing, right? I mean, banks just don't want to touch this. So, what are some of the other advantages of investing in land?
George, you're an absolute genius for bringing that up. That is such a good point because I want to be the bank. They're the reason why they're the biggest, prettiest buildings in every city and every state is because they know something about money and they know how to make money with money. And heck, they're getting it for free from the Fed and then they lend it out. That might have changed a little bit. But anyhow, the banks have created something like, well, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, FDR created it many, many years ago, but the 30-year mortgage to increase the economy, right? So I know when I look at a 30-year mortgage, the first 7 years of that amortization schedule is all interest only. Pretty much, I shouldn't say interest only, front end loaded interest. So I try and sell most of my land on a 30-year mortgage with a substantial down payment. And I know that they're not going to pay me 30 years. They're going to sell it when the market goes down. They're going to sell it when the market goes up. They're going to get a construction loan on it and build on it. And the bank's going to pay me off. But if they pay me for 7 years, I pretty much just collected all interest for the first 7 years, plus my profit when they pay it off. But let's talk about on the flip side, when we're buying that land, sellers know that banks don't lend on land unless you're like in a different price range. You're talking commercial $500,000 land. And that's still hard to get loans on, by the way. Still hard to get banks to finance it, but sellers know that. So they have to sell it either all cash at a pretty cheap price, or they have to be the bank for you and take seller financing. So a lot of times our sellers will allow us to make payments for the land. And generally I try and negotiate with them and do principal only payments. I just pay them a higher payment, and that all goes to principal, AKA 0% interest. And even better, I'm now having people start to see what I'm doing with this land business, and they've got $10, $20, $30, $45,000 sitting on the sidelines because they pulled it out of the stock market, or it's in their safe, or it's in a savings account earning nothing. And we're paying them anywhere from literally 8 to 12% interest for their money secured by land. We don't touch it. It goes to the title insurance company. We get them a lender's insurance policy and we make the payments. So I'm now having private lenders approaching me, which has been incredible because I have more land deals than I could buy with my own personal cash.
Yeah, great stuff. And as you mentioned, I think let's talk about your second deal. So your second deal, I believe you bought that for $500, but when you sold it, you were getting payments of $400 a month. One of the advantages here, it seems, is that you can get some things that are just way below market because you've got sellers that they're sick and tired of paying taxes for all these years. Now, whereas you and your network may be smart enough to go sell the hunting rights or whatever and make the land actually pay. You've got people who have just been getting hit year after year, and you're getting those great prices.
Yeah, and there's a reason. So that you really did your homework, George. That second parcel of land that I bought for $500 down, and I'm sorry, $500 total, I sold for $500 down and $400 a month on Craigslist. And you know why I did that? Not because I was a genius and I knew like wanted to become the bank, was because that land was landlocked. It was surrounded by state property in Colorado Springs, just south of NORAD, next to Fort Carson, Colorado. That's where I was stationed in the Army. And I didn't think it was that valuable. So I was like, maybe someone will pay me payments, but I really want my money back out of this land. We sold it to a hunter. Literally a few days later, he brought me $500 down, and he would give me $400 a month. Sometimes I'd go to his house and pick up the cash. Sometimes he'd bring it to my house, and he paid it off early, which is crazy. 0% interest is what he like. Why would someone pay off a 0% interest loan like that? So if he ever got access to that land, it's worth hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Yeah, good stuff. Great stuff. Well, and then I would like to talk about approaching buyers, because I think that's really what gave you the confidence, right? So your first deal, you called up the realtor, said, "What is it worth?" Right?
Mm-hmm.
And hey, if it's worth 10,000 going out on the MLS, but you're getting $5,000 and you only had your money tied up for a day, hey, that's not bad.
Yeah.
But from there, you can't just call realtors every time. So how did you build your list of sellers?
Buyers or sellers?
I'm sorry, buyers. Thank you. Long
Yeah,
day.
no, great question. So a lot of these gurus tell you, go out and build a big buyers list.
Yeah.
Well, let me tell you, what's that buyers list going to do for you if you don't have land deals? So I did the opposite. I found the land, and then every time I started getting better and better. So I would add the Craigslist, and then I'd call some realtors. And the second one I didn't sell to a realtor. I'd sold it on Craigslist. And then I started putting it on Facebook Marketplace and Facebook buy sell groups. And then I started calling the neighbors and sending letters to the neighbors. And then my favorite, I put out signs. But each one of those inquiries that came in, let me tell you, I got busy quick because I was working 13 hours a day for the military. I was preparing for my third combat deployment. Plus, I had a newborn baby at home and a wife I love seeing. So I had to find someone to help me. So I hired a virtual assistant from the Philippines for $5 an hour to field. Like, I gave her direct access to my Facebook account, which people think that's crazy, like big deal. Like, I didn't have anything to lose. I get kicked out of Facebook. But she would ask them, great, if you're not like it, she would answer all the questions about the land, and she would collect their email and their phone number. Hey, would you like to hear anything? Like, would you like to hear about other land deals we get in the future? And everyone said yes. We had two options, two goals: either get them to buy today, buy the land right away, or give us their digits, email and phone number. So we built a buyer's list from Craigslist and Facebook and the signs at very, very, very quickly. And we got up to like 11,000 buyers in no time. So we'll get a land deal and just blast it out to our email list and still do everything I just mentioned: the signs, email, Facebook, Craigslist. But when my business got really good is when I started buying more expensive land in the in-demand areas, like we just walked through in Michigan. Land sales specialist realtors will sell it for you, and you don't even need a buyer's
Yeah,
list.
very important, because there are different types of realtors, and if you ask an ordinary realtor what land is worth, yeah, probably no real idea if you're busy selling single family homes.
Yeah, they think it's worthless, and they pass on a lot of the leads.
Yeah.
That's one way I get land deals right there is, talk to those Zillow Premier agents or the Redfin Premier agents. Hey, what are you doing with your land leads? Oh, you're throwing them away? Send them my way. I'll pay you a commission. And if you like, you can list them too whenever I want to sell them.
Yeah, great stuff. So then, yeah, I think that really speaks to the value of systems, because I know you talk about this being sort of passive. It sounds like it's anything but passive, but you built your systems really early. You've started hiring. And I know, I mean, because yes, I did do my homework on you, Brent. That's right. I know you're getting paid like, 10 times a day is not surprising. So you got your students are probably funneling deals to you. You've got assistants going out and looking for deals, et cetera, right?
All the above. And I don't take deals from students. I don't profit share with them unless they need me to bring some cash to the table. Then I'll do that all day long. I got to have skin in the game to feel comfortable to take that. But where it's passive, the only way it's passive is that these 69 land parcels that we have sold and that we collect payments on, every single month they pay, and it goes directly into our bank account. So if you'd like, I could share my screen, pull up the emails, and it shows like $150 here, $280 there, $816 there.
Yeah, sure. Let's do that. I love a live demo. Whoops.
All right,
Wait, I did it the wrong way. Let me stop that. Let me allow screen sharing. Okay, so hopefully we'll edit that out. Here we go.
All right. Let me pull it up really quick. I wasn't prepared for this. All right, so here we go. Yesterday was Wednesday, right? So 289, 323. This is all Wednesday. Hey, we got a down payment. Oh yeah, we got a down payment on a piece of land we sold right there. $275. That's not a down payment. That's actually a doc fee, but it says down payment. We use a down payment link. Couple $0. I don't know what that's for. This was some Saturday or Friday, 485. So this is where it gets passive. This is like rent checks without anything, without tenants calling and saying that something broke. Right. The 958. I like when these come through. These are good payments.
Yeah, great stuff. Well, I love it. And, gosh, I wish I could ask you more questions about land, because it is very exciting and I do learn a lot from doing this. But I think it's probably time to move into the rapid fire section of the interview. So you ready, Brent?
I'm always ready, George.
All right, let's do it. Just like the Rhino, always be charging. Okay. If you could be known for only one thing, what would it be?
I want my kids to know me as a land guy, not I'll actually the land guy, the land man type thing.
What's the greatest lesson in leadership you've learned as an entrepreneur?
Oh my goodness. There's been some times where I've lost my temper. I had a big team at one time. I had like 15 people and I got a little stressed out. But I learned, like, you always, as a leader, people want to be led by a calm, fearless, just constant, keen. And like, sometimes this business as entrepreneurs, like it's like where we have a lot of little things on top of us and they just pile up and then it's like an explosion. And then like 10 minutes later, it's like, what was I freaking out about? It's all good. So the lesson is there's always tomorrow.
I love it. I tell you, from being out on the water, there's a lot of leadership lessons there. If you show any emotion on the water, you have to be prepared to explain what's going on, because people will be reading your face at all times. Okay, what personal characteristic has been most pivotal to your success?
My personal characteristic, just being willing to just take the next step, even though we don't know what's around the corner, because you're never going to have all the answers. God said, let tomorrow worry about itself. I've given you enough for today.
I love it. It sounds like that's the Rhino, Phil. You're always ready for the next thing. Well, hey, let's add a little randomness to the mix here. Just tell me when to stop cutting the deck and we'll ask you something completely random. Okay, here it is.
Go ahead.
Ta-da! If you could have any view from your back porch, what would it be?
Oh man, I already had it in Colorado. I'd like to get that back because we're in Florida now. We love where we're at in Florida. We love our family, but the mountains. I love the view of the mountains. We have the lake house already with that view. Ocean view, nah. But mountains. I like the mountain views.
I love the Wyoming property, both in the Smokies as well as in Central Florida. So yeah, love those views. Great views. Can you name a book that's helped to forge you as a leader and as an entrepreneur, and why?
Rhinoceros Success.
All right, back to that. I love it. I love the theme. What's the biggest
Mm-hmm.
hurdle you've overcome in your business in the last year, and what did it teach you?
In the last year, about 12 months ago, actually. So I'm going to cheat a little bit. Maybe it was 12 and a half months ago. Was I canceled all my debit cards and my credit cards because we racked up a lot of subscriptions, a lot of expenses. We call them fixed expenses like rent and things like that. But really it's not fixed expenses like DocuSign and Adobe. Like I had roughly 15 team members at one time. We had the office, and when business slows down for a month or two, and you realize I was just doing land deals and house deals just to pay my team, I realized like we need to really tighten our belt and lower the expenses. So we started going, and why did I cancel my credit cards and my debit cards? Was so I can figure out who the heck was charging me on all these accounts and debit cards and credit card accounts, and get rein on our cash because it was going out the window faster than it was coming in. So in business, as you earn more income, your expenses will follow right behind that, and sometimes will outrun your income. So, I go through now every single month, we go through the expenses and we write, is it profitable today or unprofitable today? And everything that's a U will either pause it or cancel it. And why did I cancel those credit cards and those debit cards? Because when these companies reach out, like Adobe was like, hey, you didn't pay your payment this month. Well, 7 of those logins for Adobe, those people were no longer with us. I didn't need to pay that anymore. So you can negotiate, you can pause it. Like I found out I could pause MailChimp. I wasn't mailing those 11,000 buyers, but it's costing me $335 a month to have them sitting there.
Oh yeah. All right, can you set us out with a quote to help forge our listeners as leaders and entrepreneurs?
Take massive, imperfect, violent action. You don't have to know the answers. Just take action. There's a reason why librarians are not usually rich. They're surrounded by the knowledge, the education, but you got to implement the action step because, if you're not willing to take the action, the massive, imperfect, violent action, then you're just going to have the knowledge, and that's not very powerful.
All right. Love it. So version 1 beats version none every time. And I want to thank you, Brent. You're out there, you're living the dream, you're teaching other people how to be land sharks. I want to thank you for taking the time to share your knowledge and experience with our audience.
Thank you, George. God bless, man.
Oh, but before we do officially go, got to remember, how do you reach out to Brent Bowers? So if I want to become the next land shark, join your coaching program, or what do I do?
Yeah, the easiest way is go to thelandsharks.com, fill out that application, schedule a call. I will be the one calling you. I'll call you as soon as possible. I still do land deals. but I will reach out, and we have a very limited amount of spots that we can bring in people each month. You can also find me on social media. Thanks for asking, George. Brent L. That's L stands for land. Yes, it does. Brent L. Bowers. You can find me on most social channels.
All right, amazing. Thank you so much.
Thank you.